Welcome back to the iJupiter Live. I'm your host, Tom Franklin. Today we have on Chris Kramer from the Arizona 4. I'm excited. You guys are excited. We're going to get into some stuff. We're going to talk about what they've been doing up there on the Mogollon Rim. I always mispronounce that even in my own mind. I was trying to do Rumble today, guys. I seen that it wasn't working. As soon as I clicked it on, it said, we're having problems with one of your destinations. So I still got to look into that. I will do my best. It's going to be quite the journey to figure that out. Let me give a shout out to all my moderators. I have a ton of great moderators. Let me make sure I get them all here on the list. I want to give a great shout out to Jim from Fisher Spam's The Night Watch, Daniel Cahoon from Magical Journey, Denise is wonderful, my newest member, Jeanette, and of course, the great and powerful Pam Stefanich. So if you keep finding yourself coming back to the iJupiter, please do me a favor, like and subscribe channel. Go over on Rumble, and you'll at least get some of my episodes until I get the lives figured out over there. You can also find all my all the MP3 situations on any of your podcasting things that you'd like. Hey, what's up, Darren? Darren's already here. He was on. You can check out that live. That was really cool. You can get yourself a T-shirt and all that. You get to see some wonderful spelling here. Let me show you some of my great spelling. I still have to fix this. Here it is, right here. Down in the description, there's an S missing there below. If you guys want to get yourself a T-shirt, a hat, or whatever, you can go ahead and do that, and maybe you can send me a dictionary. With all that out of the way, let's please welcome to the iJupiter my buddy Chris Kramer. Hey, buddy.
Good to be here, pal.
Good to see you. So you're on vacation in Mexico.
I am. It's my favorite destination after the Mogollon Rim. You know, we do the Sasquatch stuff, and then we do other stuff.
Yeah. So here you go, guys. They have themselves a YouTube channel that's right there in the description. You can also find a description in the links below in the description. Go ahead and click on that, and you can please subscribe to the channel and check out what they're doing. We're going to get into that. And they have also, it is a private Facebook group. Do not go over there and cause any ruckus or chaos, because my buddies will make sure that you don't. But it's a great group, very friendly, very kind. Their wives are in there, and it's been nothing but fantastic since I've been allowed to the group. So I had your buddy Kevin Keeney on, and his episode is going to be dropping on Tuesday, and that was quite an interesting episode. It's on the members, guys. If you want to go to the members and check it out, you can get some early content as well. So where did you meet Kevin, and how did this whole thing start, dude?
So when I came to Arizona, Kevin and I were online friends for a number of years on a private Facebook page. It was like a group of deep experiencers and researchers, for lack of a better term. So Kevin and I knew each other from 2017 on, around there. And when I moved to Arizona in 2020, I linked up with Kev. And Kevin already was pretty well established in his spots. And just kind of by default, we started building this group of a regular bunch of us that would go out, and all of us were already kind of experiencers and researchers in our own right. Kevin and Rob Copeland, Wayne Dillon, guys that have been down this road for a long time. And we just all it was all simpatico, man. You know what I mean? We all live fairly close to each other. We're all passionate about the outdoors, passionate about the topic. And, I got to give the nod to Kevin. Kevin had stumbled upon a couple of areas up on the rim that are pretty remote and obscure, and had already kind of had the ball rolling. He was getting, back then, we were more in the research frame of mind. Kevin was, habituated with these things, for lack of a better term. He was, I think that's the kind of direction that we initially were going, kind of like a Jane Goodall, be there, be consistent, do the same things over and over and over and over and over again. But back in those days, 5 years ago, I didn't go anywhere without a camera and a vid cam, and Kevin had all the audio tech, and we were doing all that, you know. And I mean, we would get some incredible interaction, but it was distanced, you know. And
Right.
not long after that, you know, I had my first experience with the telepathy thing, right? And we were all out, and we were basically asked to put the tech down. And that's it sounds so crazy when I say it, but we did. You know, we stopped filming. We stopped trying to catch pictures. I mean, that's it's part of the journey for a lot of people. You know, like you get into this thing, and then you realize that your camera around, and you're going to start seeing stuff. You know, and I when we stopped doing that, and we stopped trying to provide evidence and collect evidence, and we just started letting it unfold more organically as people, you know, and the nature of our interaction, communication, and experience just changed exponentially, man. It changed everything, you know. That's kind of the abridged version of the whole thing.
That's cool. Yeah, that's fine. So this is the cool thing, man. Like, okay, so when I reached out to you like a year ago, and you were, you know, you were like keeping your cards
yeah,
close
right when
to
you
your chest.
started, man. It was in the first couple of weeks of
Yeah, I reached out to you, and you were like, "Hey, dude, who are you?" And I was like, "I'm Tom." And you were like,
Yeah,
"All right,
totally.
I'm gonna call you." And I was like, "Okay, you called me, or I called you, however that went." And we talked for like a half hour or 45 minutes before you even came on the show. You were like, kind of like, "Hey, this is,
Yeah.
you know, this is something unique to me." And now you guys have taken this additional step to come kind of, you know, basically come public and say, "Look, this is what we're running into out here." What was the reason behind that thinking?
You know, I think it was a couple of things. We were always we had individually, I mean, Kevin ran a channel for a good 8 years, you know what I mean? And it was there he is. There's Mr.
Yeah,
King.
yeah. He said he
Kevin ran
he
a
had to come
channel
home.
for
Yeah. Hope you feel better soon, buddy.
Yeah, uh-oh. Feel better, brother. I'll hit you up afterwards, pal. And so Kevin was running Arizona Squatch, but collectively, we kind of had this mindset that what we did as a group was so unique, and what we were experiencing, that we felt like, I think we felt that like we didn't want to tarnish that with a lot of public ego shit, for lack of a better term. Pardon my language.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, no worries.
And I was, you know, I mean, I was really for a long time dead set against creating a platform. I felt like whatever we did individually was fine. You know what I mean? I've been friends with people that have, like yourself, like very successful uh, uh, outlets. You know what I mean? And platforms. And you know, I was always blessed if I felt like I wanted to. There we go. We're back.
Yeah, we'll get there,
buddy.
We'll
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you.
Okay, cool. Little glitchy.
Mexican internet.
I felt like whatever we did individually was fine. I know. I've got 5G, and I haven't had over 4G on my phone since I got here. That's like a stretch. So, but what we did collectively was something that was so special, we felt, and really unique. And I think we were concerned, and I think there's still a little this concern that, you know, when we put the tech down and we stopped doing a lot of this other stuff, that if we went public in platforms like this, that it would, I think we were concerned that it would screw up our kind of symbiosis with the forest folk, you know. And you know, we had another former member, for lack of a better term, that really dove into this thing publicly and had some success with it. But his narrative started to change, and he did it based on kind of using the somewhat known platform of the Arizona Four to do this, and the rest of us were a little concerned that some of the stuff that he was saying wasn't what we were. And I don't want to disparage this guy. I mean, I love him; he's a good person. But it just wasn't what the rest of us felt like was happening, you know. And I'll preface that by saying we don't all agree on what's happening out here. Like none of us have little minds, you know, and we all have our own beliefs and we have our own theories. Is it's all it is, and we get in some pretty heated topic discussion about this stuff. But moving forward, I think we decided this past year that that there may be some benefit to getting out there and being a bit more public. And so, you know, we sat down and we hammered out how this was going to work. We're still a work in progress, you know, like, you know, for us, you know, a lot of people that are glancing amongst this topic and checking it out, you know, are looking for dopamine hits and looking for evidence and looking for, you know, some shock value, you know, pictures and videos and audio and all that stuff, you know, and you know, we have kind of like kept our word about not doing that. So what you're going to get, if you're somebody that wants to compare experiences, wants to look for commonalities, you know, we're a good platform for you. If you're here and you're looking, you know, for some sort of video evidence and things of that nature, we're probably not the right platform for you because we're not doing that. But, you know, the need for that in my life sailed a long time ago, Tom, you know?
Yeah, dude, it's the interesting thing about you, the what I've kind of, you know, gleaned out of what the information I'm getting from you guys, it's a different the connection you're having with the forest people, the GAN as you call them, because I don't think you know, Kevin calls him that. He has his own, you know, which is great, I think, by the way. I've been wanting to say that. I think it's wonderful that even though you guys are friends and you're going up there and you're experiencing a lot of these things together, that you're coming with different viewpoints. But that's what it's all about to begin with. And I think that's a good thing, dude. Honestly, I really do.
You know, it's like from the GAN thing, I don't refer to these guys all as the GAN. Just let me disabuse you of that. You know, there's
okay.
From our understanding of it, there is a caste system amongst their society, right? And the GAN, my understanding is, I think Kevin would agree to this, is that there's like you know, the elders and the wise men of their people are elevated to the GAN status, but they're not all GAN. They're all whatever the people.
Okay.
You know, I mean, whatever they call themselves. However, you know, like, so I think we talked about this once before. We got that strange validation in a museum in Payson, Arizona, below the Mogollon Rim, that referred to the Apaches' spiritual beliefs, and the Apaches used to revere, I won't say worship, but hold in very high esteem and regard the spirits of the mountains and the forest that resided amongst the Four Peaks and as well as the Mogollon Rim, and those spirits are referred to as the GAN. And we found that out after we were getting some of these names where they would have the suffix, and we literally had names that we can call them given to us, and some of these names had the suffix of the, you know, there was Eadengan and Terragan and Parodic. There's a whole bunch of these GAN types, you know, but not all of them have that name. And when we realized that the area that we're experiencing in is in the middle of Apache country. I mean, that's where the last Apache wars took place, and now, you know, that's Geronimo country. You know what I'm saying? And that they referred to these entities as the GAN. We felt like that was somewhat validating for us, you know.
No.
That was, I don't think that they're not all the GAN from my understanding of it. I think the rest of us would agree to that as well. One of the few things.
Yeah. From what I gleaned, it's quite, you guys are having quite the interesting like experiences. There's incredible like healing powers that are being bestowed upon you guys. There's things that I remember you telling me that you have your situation with your hand and your arm, and you're right, and that like they're somehow like interacting with you in ways that, I mean, I've heard other people speak of this too, but you guys are so like upfront with it, and it's a little bit different than what I've been experiencing. Could you maybe like talk a little bit about that?
I can try. A lot of times processing all this stuff over the last 5 years has been a inward journey. I mean, from the mind speak, telepathic stuff. I mean, that is, that's something that's a game changer. From the healing standpoint, it's so odd. In the last couple years since this thing happened with my hand, and I can review that with you if you like, but I've had so many people reach out to me, and if I pick at the scab enough, 90% of them have a physical ailment or an issue going on in their life, and they're looking for some sort of relief, or they're looking for a cure, or they're looking for, when traditional science and medicine and doctors haven't been able to fix their issues. I mean, they're looking for something like that. I just had this interesting conversation with a guy last week who had a degenerative back disorder and like needed hips replaced. He's in severe pain. And, he's asking me about this. And, I got to be totally frank, Tom. There's not one time, including with my hand, Kevin's had some healing experiences as well, that any of us ever went up there with that like agenda. You know what I mean? Like, oh, let me see if they'll do this for me. Like we've never done that, And so I always wonder, like, I think like Kevin has a saying, which is so true. They do what they do when they do it. And that means in interaction, behaviors, communication, but it's the truth, and I always feel like I'm going to let somebody down, if I tell them, like, I can't assure you that you would go to any one of these locations or come out. And we don't really take people out with us that much anymore. That's kind of a thing of the past, but that would happen for you. I mean, it's such a miraculous thing. Mine was, quite frankly, it was miraculous, and some of the other guys have had, I don't know if it was on the same direct level that mine was, but Kevin's had, Kevin's a wounded vet, and, he got blown up off a tank back in the Gulf War, and he's got a litany of physical ailments as a result of it, and I know he's received a pain relief on occasion, and a few other things like that, but it's not something that happens a lot. That was it's super infrequent, and there's no rhyme or reason to it, so that was from the healing aspect of it.
Yeah, it's quite interesting. I mean, I'm sure there's many examples you can give me when I ask this question, but what has surprised you about your interaction with the forest people, with the people in the Mogollon Rim? What has like surprised you, if it's not everything?
All of it.
All of it.
Before I moved to Arizona, before I linked up with Kev and the rest of the guys, I mean, I was already an experiencer. I'd gone down that research road on and off for 30 years. You know what I mean? It was something that was part of my life since I was 25 years old, but I had 2 sightings before this, right? And I'd had gifts taken back in a nature preserve back in New England, and I had, that type of kind of vagary interaction, but nothing, and I mean nothing like what has occurred in the last 5 years. Like it's a level that I never even heard of or dreamed was possible. And if I had heard about it 5, 6, 7 years ago, I would have probably dismissed it as nothing.
Hogwash. Right. Yeah.
And I hate to say that. Well, yeah, but I mean, it's some of it's so outlandish that I can objectively sit and look at this conversation from 30,000 feet, and there's a part of my Philadelphia instinct that goes, "This dude's out of his freaking rocker, man." Like I get that side of it, man. Like it's some of this stuff sounds absolutely unreal, and I'm here to say that none of it's unreal for us. Like it's been a continuous, ongoing thing. And Tommy, don't get the impression like every time we go out, we have some earth-shattering experience. Like that's, I mean, we're out a lot, you know. Kevin's out. Kevin's gone through stretches of 20, 30 days out by himself. I mean, like, you know, and I'll bet you 20 of those days was a big nothing burger. You know what I mean? Like it was, you know, it's just being out there continuously, you know, and opening yourself up to it. You know, we just last year we discovered a spot that actually one of our guys had an encounter a long time ago, kind of further north on the rim, up a little further north from our normal, like, you know, probably 20 miles from our other locations. And we just spent a couple nights up there a few weeks ago that were off the chain crazy. I mean, it wasn't a lot. There was not much, like Kevin might have gotten a little blip of communication, but and my thinking is these guys don't really know us. You know what I mean? And yet there's always been something about when they know that, you know, it kind of changes a little the paradigm here, you know. And but like the amount of physical activity that was going around every night around our campsite was like, I've seen that before, but it was not frequent, and it was insane. I mean, from, you know, full figures running between the trees, and I mean, it was you know, and on all the kind of occult, not occult, but more supernatural phenomenon that seems to occur around these guys, the twinkle light effect and the auras and just all this stuff that was going on. And it wasn't, and orbs, you know, and it wasn't like one of those, and all the eye glow, all that stuff. And it wasn't like something that, I mean, that doesn't happen all the time, you know, that it you know, when it happens, yes, I'm like, oh, that was awesome. You know what I mean? But it's something that's taken a lot of time and, you know, a lot of downtime too.
Yeah, so you've had 2 sightings.
I don't know if that answered everything. I hope it did.
Dude, you can speak and say whatever it is that you want, man. We're trying to get it out there, and yeah, dude. So you've had 2 sightings. You said, could you maybe, like, okay, for the novice, and most people are here because they kind of.
Before I moved to Arizona, I'd had.
Oh, before.
Yeah, before I moved to Arizona. Did I freeze?
Yeah, someone's freezing somewhere.
Before I moved to Arizona, I had the first encounter. Yeah, the first encounter I had was when I was out. I was in the Wisconsin Dells when I was 25 years old, and that's the first time anything. I mean, and then the second encounter, the second sighting I had was in southern Rhode Island in a nature preserve at a place that I had been continuously going to for a while, and then this guy showed himself to me. But I never had anything. Since I've been with the Arizona 4, like I've probably had, honestly, 6 solid, full physical daylight sightings over the course of the last 5 years, like easily, you know. And you know, like that church camp, we had 2 in one day, and like inside of 8 hours, it was. I mean, that's unheard of. It's unheard of, you know. And
right.
So it's definitely ramped up quite a bit more since the Arizona experience started.
Have you been by any chance speaking to any of the Navajo people of the region to try to get into? Because I can't think of his name at the moment, but I'm speaking with a guy who knows a lot about Wendigos and the what's he called it? I'm going to mess it up. The Natalushi, which is skinwalkers for the novice. And if you've been talking to him, what have they been telling you?
You know, so obviously there's a huge Navajo presence in Arizona, you know, and we've all spent a little bit of time up on the res. And I've made some inroads with some of these guys in my time here. And, you know, a lot of what they say conflicts with each other sometimes. You know, I've heard people that I respect from the Navajo Nation saying, don't interact with them, don't fool with them, and stay away from them. And I've heard the exact opposite too. I've heard, you know, good spiritual beings. So I never really know how to respond to that because there doesn't seem to be a consensus amongst themselves, you know, and that's been my experience with them. You know, Kevin's got a buddy up on the res that, so some of the verbalizations that Kevin received over his time, he took to a Navajo speaker that he knows, and he was able to gain a little bit of maybe insight on what some of these words mean that have been spoken to. So that's always interesting. There's without a doubt, if you want to look for the ground zero in North America of maybe some insight and some history, there's no better place to start than First Nations people here. I mean, it's been in their zeitgeist of their culture for 10,000 years, and that's all over the country, man. That's in Narragansett.
That's
Rhode
very
Island,
interesting.
Northern California,
that's very interesting.
Colorado. It's true.
Yeah, because
and I
love
that.
And also in trying to go a little bit off topic, but it's kind of not. Like if you go into I would imagine like native cultures of even like Asia and Africa and many other places in the world, they have these as well. But I also imagine, because there's also Noah's Ark flood. The flood is in many of these people's ancient wisdom and stuff like that too. It's just such an interesting thing. I know. I look at him smiling. I know I'd tickle your little your fancy there. I know you enjoy those kind of things. You and I love that kind of stuff, and it's just it's so underappreciated by the science community, and I don't know why. It's in every corner you look, whether it be Cherokee, Navajo, or the Pawnee, or any of them. It's there, and they just snuff their nose at it as like it's some type of all these people are in the woods and they don't know what they're talking about. But
Tom, I'll jump down that alternative historical narrative rabbit hole anytime you want, brother.
Yeah, this is my thing, man.
That's my other passion. That's where you and I always vibe, right? Obviously there's every major culture around the world has a flood story. I mean, every single one of them, from Southeast Asia to all through Europe and obviously the Americas and South. I mean, they all have it. They all have one. So, that maybe leads a little bit of credence to some biblical texts. That's an area that's a slippery slope. I think a lot of people engaged in the Sasquatch phenomenon are always trying, many of them are always trying to force this thing through a biblical lens. You know what I mean? And, and I'm a faulty Christian, and I don't disparage that. Then you go down the Nephilim road and all that stuff. You know what I mean? And I think for the most part, and I'll nod to Kev. Kev's very devout, and yet he is not somebody that's going to say that he is, and he's not somebody like Kevin will be the first person to tell you he does not believe these guys are of Nephilim descent. Neither do I. I mean, it hasn't been our experience, and
that episode is going to, that episode is going to come out.
It hasn't been, and you look in.
He gets into that,
and Kev's got some theories, and his reason. That's what podcasts are for, man.
It's coming. We're doing a little bit of foreshadowing on Kevin Keeney. He's coming out on the 29th, guys.
Yeah, I'm not going to rain on Kev's parade. Kev's taking a deep dive. Kevin knows the Bible better than most people I know, man. And
yes, he does.
That being said, we don't all agree. We agree on many things, but when I'm always very leery and about laying a foundational backstory to any of this stuff. That's what the experts do, right? These guys are descended from, or they're the children of Esau, whatever that's looking like. You know what I mean? You know what? That's something you can believe whatever you want, but you don't know that. You don't know that. Nobody, I don't care how, I've been in this thing for 30 years, Tom. I know less now than I did 20 years ago. I'm convinced of it, man. We've all come to this conclusion that the who's, the whys, and the hows, that doesn't hold a lot of importance for us at all anymore. It just doesn't. The firsthand nature of the experiences, the commonalities amongst others. If anybody's moving the ball forward, you can delve into ancient texts and the Sumerian tablets, all the Anunnaki stuff, all the Genesis stuff, and then transition over to the Book of Enoch and the Book of Giants and the Book of Dreams, you know what? There might be something in there that fleshes this out a little bit, but it is not a defining narrative, and none of them are. None of them are. And that's not even including the native stuff, which has nothing to do with any biblical or Sumerian or any of that. It's got nothing to do with it. It's a completely different backstory narrative, you know? So who's right? Who cares? Like, I don't care anymore. Like, I don't think we're ever going to know until we, we're pushing up daisies and they throw the last cloud on. Maybe then we figure it out. But until then, I'm just in it for the ride.
Yeah, dude. I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
I
don't think there's anything wrong with it. I think, a lot of people, being a religious person, a person of faith, that informs their life and their decisions and the way they choose to live life. I have nothing wrong with that. But me, I'm okay. I'm like, okay, I hear you guys. It could be very possible. But I want to have everything open, and like right. Jim said, Jim, that's Jim from Fisher's Master Night Watch. That's his bread and butter. But he's like, this is what I believe, and that's fine. But he wrote in there, it's okay to disagree, right. And there's nothing wrong with that because nobody truly knows. If we knew, then the podcast we wouldn't be talking right now. It's a genuine mystery that we're delving into.
I always say that. Yeah, and that we're all addicted to. I always say that, and then not dismissively, but when we're out doing our deal and we're documenting our experiences, that's important to me more than literally anything else. But podcasts, this is where you can delve into theory, if you like, and we can examine, take things out of the box, look at it, and whatever, put it down. I have, just like many of us that have been around this for a minute. Nobody's got access to information that's like, oh, here's the secret sauce, man, that we don't all have at our fingertips. And there's some great researchers. If I listen to guys like Timothy Alberino or L.A. Marzulli or some of these guys that are just so well versed and have taken the deepest dives of all, any of these guys can latch onto a narrative and put up a really convincing argument for it, and back it up with source material. But, I can remember one time arguing with Kev a long time ago, and I'm bringing up some of the similarities between the Sitchin translated version of the Sumerian tablets, where there's a very common element Genesis story. The faces and the names are changed, but the bones of the story are identical to Genesis. And Kevin had dismissed a lot of that Anunnaki stuff a long time ago. You know what I mean? I don't know. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? But I will say that he made one solid point. If you believe in the enemy, you believe in an evil force that is involved in our spiritual life, in our physical life on a daily, and that maybe lives outside of time. It doesn't matter. Like, what's to say that stuff wasn't planted there 7,000 years ago just to see it fall out of the gate? You know what I mean? That's on the table, right? So it really is. And Kev's right about that. Like, I don't know, I could prove this from the Sumerian tablets from 6,000 years ago. Well, how do you know that stuff wasn't just a bunch of friggin' fiction planted there by the devil just to screw people's brains up? Like, who knows, man? Anything's on the table with this stuff at this point. There's very little that I won't believe, because I've seen unbelievable things, Who knows?
Okay, so what is there's a lag, man. There's a lag in time. We're doing our best, guys. What is the okay, now that you guys are coming public?
We're doing good?
Yeah, dude, we're doing good, buddy. What is the overall, what is the plan going forward with the Arizona 4? What is your guys' plans to bring this information to light? I gotta ask, dude. It's my job.
I think we're gonna for you know what, for us it's business as usual. It really is. Our bread and butter, the meat and bones of what we do is out in the woods, man. You know what I mean? And getting out there every year, I think something maybe a little bit more gets revealed to us, like something they can do, or they'll say something, or so I think living in the experience is our plan moving forward. The platform, we want to do it well and kind of do it right, but do it foundationally the right way, and be authentic to ourselves and how we are. And I think we definitely have one mindset with this, is that we are all super close. We trust each other.
Great.
And we love each other. And I think, yeah, right. I mean, I'm just the best friends, man, and I think that if at any point we feel like this thing is creating a drag and friction and negativity, we'll pull the plug, man. That is so not important. I don't think any of us feel like we want to be the man. You know what I mean? And none of us really are too interested in, hitting the conference circuit and trying to be somebody. If I'd wanted to do that, I could have done that a long time ago. You know what I mean? I got
right.
Gift of gab. I know how to get out there and speak. So does Kev. I mean, we're all able to do that. So I think keeping the ego out of it and just putting out the meat and potatoes of what's happening to us and giving it to you guys to examine it and make it, take it from you want, man. That's what we're doing. I'm not trying to. Nobody's trying to reinvent the wheel, and nobody's trying to have our own television show. We're trying to do the opposite of that.
Such a cool thing.
I don't know how you do it, but
such a cool thing. I love, I don't know if you know who Trey Hudson is. He does the Meadow Project. He's kind of doing the same thing, but you guys are more like experiential, friendship experiential. His things are like, he's like out there like, he's out there with his, with his meters, and he writes everything. He's former military and DOD, or I can't remember exactly. He really writes everything down, and he's very meticulous about it. But he's the same thing. He makes you sign an NDE if you go out there. Not an NDE. He's not making you sign a near-death experience. What's the word I'm looking for?
Agreement.
Yeah, not NDE.
Non-disclosure.
Yes, a non-disclosure NDE. I want mine on today.
An MRE.
Yeah, an MRE. Oh, meal ready to eat. I know those, man. Oh, the foreign chicken patties. They were the grossest.
I'm sure you do.
They were awful. That's some military stuff.
So I've been told.
Yeah. Could you go into maybe some of the experiences that to give people a little bit about what's going on out there, what you guys are running into that you all are. I mean, of course you have different ways, or you're seeing it and expressing it with words. I think words are probably a hindrance in explaining some of this. But what would be something that you all agree on that happened that you experienced for the listening audience?
So we have had. Okay, let's go to the Mystique stuff, right? So we've had times where it's manifested where all four of us have heard literally the exact same message at the exact same time, and we'll put a count on it. Okay, what'd you hear? 3, 2, 1. Say it, and it's lines up identically. You know what I mean? Whether it's a name, a number, a quick message, they don't. Yeah, and so that's so validating. Because honestly, Tom, when this first happened to me, that happened to me, I mean, I had to really question my sanity for a second. I really did, and, Kevin initially probably had those experiences before most of us did, just because he was out there the most, and so when that happens, that's super validating. And I've had some off the wall. I've got a story to tell you, a Mystique story. All right.
Okay.
So exactly almost a year ago to today, about within 2 weeks, right? My father passed away, right? So at the time, I'm driving up to meet Kevin for a 2 or 3 nights up on the rim with him. It's something we'd planned out. My dad was in hospice back east in Cape May, New Jersey. And so I'm driving. I'm probably about 45 minutes away from getting to the site. And I'm driving on the main highway that runs below the Mogollon Rim. It's the 260. It kind of goes from it crosses Arizona all the way over to New Mexico, right? So as I'm driving, my brother calls me, right? And he tells me that dad had literally just passed. And so I pull over to the side of the road. I call my family, call my kids, and I'm sitting in the car. I'm like, what am I supposed to do here? I mean, I'm in the middle of East Nothing, Arizona. And, you know, I know that I got to get back east with funeral arrangements and all that stuff's coming up, right? But I'm like, what internally, what am I supposed to do here, you know? And so I make the decision, you know what, I can't think of a better way to process my dad's death than out in nature with my best friend, who's also somewhat of a spiritual advisor for me in some ways, right? And so I decided to continue on with my plans. So I get up on the top of Rim Road on the 300, which goes, it's a road's a generous term. It's a trail that runs across the top of the rim for miles from end to end, you know, and it's kind of like the edge of it. And then I cut into one of the side forest roads, which goes way back to where our camp was going to be. And I get to the crossroad of two trails, right? And I'm bouncing along in my Tacoma, and I'm kind of contemplating my dad, you know. And
Right.
I come to a stop just real quick at this intersection. I mean, it's just two trails. I get this deep female voice in my head that says, literally, we mourn with you the loss of your father, and we celebrate that he is at peace with the Creator now. I mean, and this wasn't something I was generating. This was one of them sending me a personal message to me. And I started to shake because, you know, I'd been my dad and I had a complicated relationship, but we loved each other. And I pulled over and I'm shaking. I start to tear up. I get emotional because, you know, I just lost my dad. And that's what happens to me. And so I kind of pull it together and I head on down the trail and I see Kevin hiking up about 5 minutes after I pulled away from this intersection. And he jumps in the car with me and the truck with me. And I tell him what just happened. And he knew my dad a little bit, you know. So we get back to the campsite. And that night was a top 3 experiential night of my life. It was so powerful. I mean, right at dusk, we had a sighting, a white one, and it sat like above a down tree and just stared at us for a freakishly long period of time. It was minutes. And that's, you know, you see one of these guys, it's like, you know, usually fairly brief, you know, and so that was unique. And then that night, I mean, they put on a light show, like just from the twinkle light phenomenon that's going on, and they were all around us. And we had, so this is going to sound crazy. I'm just going to tell a story. Kevin had a friendship with one of these guys that passed away a few years ago, and that's another story all unto itself. And if he told, I'm not going to tell that story because if he was on, I bet he told it too. And maybe he didn't.
No, actually, he didn't. But I'll have to have him back on to go into that one.
So this forest, yeah, that needs to come out of Kev's mouth. So, but this friend of Kevin's mate came into the camp, and she stood in front of us, like cloaked, uncloaked, then cloaked, for lack of a better term, and talked to both of us. And we both heard everything for a good at least minute and a half, and then she walked off. And she repeated what she said to me about my dad. That's who had spoken to me. Her name was Aiden Gan. I don't know, one of them female. I always forget where the two of them is. Gan and Gan, and one of them's a determination for female, and the other one's a determination for male. Anyway, she sat and that entire night, it was just like almost like the energy in the camp was just almost like a celebration of my dad's life, grieving with me, and I get choked up talking about it because it was really powerful. And so yeah, that was a story last May. That happened.
It's incredible, dude. What is the twinkle?
So, anybody,
phenomenon?
when you hear the stories about these guys being,
what is the twinkle light phenomenon?
Great question. Couldn't answer it. I just know that it happens. It's this like light manifestation. It's an energy discharge almost that seems to occur when they're around. And, it looks like little LED lights popping off wherever they're at, and to me, it always kind of, when I start seeing them, it kind of like heralds their presence, like they're coming. Like, very rarely would we ever see one of these guys without that happening. You know what I mean? And so, and then, then we get into theories about what this is, what that is. I don't know. I don't know if it's something that they discharge when they're, for lack of a better term, crossing the veil or decloaking or whatever that is. Like, whatever that is, it's something that manifests when they're there, and we've had hours and hours and hours of discussion about the possibilities, but I don't know. And none of us, and there's not a member of the Arizona 4 that's going to say, well, that's what this is, because we just don't know. It just happens when they're there. And then, and there's other little kind of, we get this thing that kind of looks like the Aurora Borealis going on, and it lights up. It's this wavy rainbow colors that go on, and I don't know what that is either. I mean, we
really?
there's an element to these guys that is so shrouded in mystery, and how they do what they do, why they do what they do. I mean, that is literally at this point anyone's guess. And you know what? I'm arrogant enough to say that if we don't know, I don't know who does. I don't know.
Are they different? Are they different colors? The lights? Are they just one color? Or are they different colors? Are there? Or do the lights?
No, it's like a Christmas tree. It's almost like a Christmas tree. Like it's little red pops, and then a blue pop, then a white pop, and it's just a random mix of. It almost looks like really bright fireflies. You know what I mean? Or and there's no fireflies up on the Mogollon Rim. Like that's not what it is. But I mean, it's like that. Like I said, it's almost like a Christmas decoration going off all around.
Wow,
that's what it looks like.
That's like an enchanting kind of thing. It's more like it's like just a feeling I get, because of course I don't know, you don't know, I'm not even there. You would know better than I know, but it's almost like spiritual or something. It's much different. A lot of people's experiences are like they're gifting, or they get bluff charged, or they get paced out of the woods. It seems a little bit more like get away from us, but they seem to have accepted you guys into the area and to like communicate with them.
I got to give credit where credit's due to that. I mean, none of this, and I will say this, I'll never say it, he's probably listening. I don't even want you to hear this, Kev, but none of this happens. I won't say that Kevin's the catalyst for all of this, but Kevin's the one who opened that door. He really did. He developed a degree of trust for these guys that's unparalleled in my experience. And as a result of that, I received the same thing. Robbie received the same thing. Wayne did. We all kind of got accepted by this. And it didn't happen overnight either, but it happened. And, none of that probably happens without Kevin having this kicked off this friendship with one of these guys, a long time ago. So, I don't know if was the intro for all of us or not, but I mean, when Kevin shares about his experiences, unless you've been there, unless you've seen it, it sounds like something out of a Tolkien novel. I mean, it is unreal, and he might be the most authentic, honest man I've ever met in my life. I mean, I love him because he's, he was, he officiated my wedding, man. You know what I mean? Like,
wow,
our wives are close, and he was a. Oh yeah. Kev's cool.
That's
man.
Incredible. That's incredible. I much love the Kevin.
Like I said, guys, tattooed minister.
Yeah, that's the dude. He's the real deal, man. Kevin, get well soon, my friend. First of all, I know he's not feeling well, so this is news to Chris as well. Yeah, dude. He's coming up, guys. Like I said, you can go get it early, or you can wait till Tuesday. But he came on, and I gotta have him on again. Like the way. What about the other two gentlemen you go with? What are their names? And is there maybe eventually I can get to speak with them?
Yeah, absolutely. Because they're just as involved. They're just, it's Rob Copeland. All these guys are vets except for yours truly. Rob was a submariner. You know what I mean? He was a badass. And Wayne Dillon. And Wayne is a very seasoned, another guy like the rest of us, just passionate about the outdoors. And they're not. I would say that video and media platforms is not their favorite thing, especially. You know what I mean? But they're both
fine
and super smart, super intelligent guys. They participate in the growth of this thing in their own way, and a lot of it is good advice. They'll craft a post or they'll craft an experience and put it out there post-wise. They'll always participate if we do something in the camp. You know what I mean? Like, and Rob's, they're both great. They're eloquent, thoughtful.
Fantastic.
Speakers, good.
We got to listen. I'm guessing this is Kevin. I'm not sure. It could be one of the other two gentlemen. He said, "Tell him." I guess you tell me about the crazy town we walked when we walked up behind.
I know what he's talking about. Tell him I stroked his ego long enough on this episode. He can save that story. I'm not telling you how great you are, Keeney. You just sit back and watch.
Oh my God! All right, okay. Oh, Kevin,
tell him yourself, Kevin.
You picked the bone. You tell him. I said, all right. Well, then, Kevin.
You know what?
That's an open invitation. After your episode drops, I will have you on around, if you'd love to, sir. God willing. Hope you feel better. Around in the beginning of June on a live. Go ahead and contact me, Kevin, and we'll make that happen. And we can talk about the town.
After that last 15 minutes.
He's laughing.
After that last 15 minutes about Kevin, he's gonna need two chairs at the dinner table, one for him and one for his ego. I'm not giving him another stroke today. You're done, Kenny.
Oh man, this is great, dude. Oh man. So
but enough.
So you enjoying yourself? Are you enjoying yourself in Mexico, dude? Are you having a good time down with your family, your wife?
Buddy, we're down here with my wife and close friends of ours that live in our hometown, and we're having a blast, man. I love. You know what? I'm always cautious, Tommy, about. I've seen guys involved with this that get so absorbed and so obsessed with this topic that they eat and breathe it, man. You know what I mean? And I keep that balance, brother. When I'm out and we're engaged and we're doing it, I'm all in. But I love to do things outside of this with my wife.
Yeah.
We like to travel, obviously. We like to do other stuff. You know what I mean? We like to socialize with our friends and just kind of have a normal life. I don't nothing about my life's normal, but this is like the normal side of it, right? Like this is, we get to come down here and eat tacos and sit on the beach for a week. Can't beat that.
Yeah.
And then I'm going home. I'll be out with the guys again.
I feel the same way, dude. If you just from my side being cool. A podcaster,
I'm really blessed.
There's so many people.
I really am.
Yeah, dude, absolutely. On my side, I get to people like you and Darren and Pam and Jim and all the people in my community, all the people that I enjoy talking with. It's a lot to keep up with sometimes, and sometimes I just I'll be like, okay, it's weekend, this weekend, tomorrow I'm going to be on with Jim, and we're going to be doing the Form of the Forbidden. We're going to talk about all the current topics, and I have to take a step back and kind of enjoy and live life too. I understand that, man. It makes a lot of sense. It gets hard sometimes.
So I've watched this. I mean, I've got to sit back in an armchair for 30 years and watch the evolution of this phenomenon from a public. I was doing this before there was such thing as Google or the internet. You know what I mean? So I've seen this thing kind of, metastasize into a whole different thing, but I've watched, I've watched, the people that get so fixated And you've had some guests that are like this on the videography and the the backwards camera shit, like all that Scott Carpenter stuff and whoever, Harley Owens. Yeah. But I've watched that for so long, and I've seen people just get so to the exclusion of everything else in their life. And let's face it, I mean, I'm passionate. I'm as passionate today as I've ever been about all of it. You know what I mean? But I also recognize that, I've seen guys, I have somebody I knew really well that's got a super successful YouTube platform, and he's huge. I mean, and yet I've watched his family life disintegrate, his career disintegrate, and it's 365, 24/7. You know what I mean? For 10, 11, 12 years. And it breaks my heart because it's like, hey, you're missing out on so many things, man. Nobody's going to discover the secrets of the earth tonight, and you're not going to do it, and I'm not going to do it. So you know what? You might as well enjoy some of the other things that are going on that God blesses you with, man. Your wife, your kids, whatever you're passionate about in other areas. For me, it's about recovery. I live in that recovery world with, I've been in recovery from drugs and alcohol for a long time, right? And helping other guys get clean and sober. Like I'm passionate about, as passionate about that as I am about this. Like it's, it's so important to me. You know what I mean? And so like I have that outlet for that need for balance, and so I can step away and I can do that. It's kind of symbiotic. It all kind of blends together for me in a good way. It wasn't always like that though.
Yeah, dude, to make a what's the word I'm looking for? Not a synonym, but like life is like, if life was like a song, what song that if you're a rock guy like myself or a metalhead like myself, which song do I know that only has one note? It's everything. So like, I guess we're trying to say, guys, like this is a fantastic and what it is. It's a discovery that's so big that we can't understand, that we simply can't. But to fixate on anything, one thing in your life is not healthy. You need to broaden your perspective. That means looking out as well as looking in, and then kind of enjoy it too, man, because your days are numbered one way or another. And there's people out there who love you and depend on you, and there's people that you want to help, and God willing, and all the good graces that you put out into the world is what you get back as well. And I think it's really cool that we get to do this. We live in a day and age where we get to do this, and I think it's awesome that you bring that up, dude. I think it's really awesome that you get to say something like that, dude. I think it's a good idea.
It's critical. It's critical. And you know what, Tommy, I get it, because I can remember there's been periods when I was younger where I was so absorbed and fascinated with the why and the how and just the entire, that, oh my God, this is real thing. You know what I mean? That it starts to cancel out other things in my life. And, and some of that time was, when I was, still active in addiction too. You know what I mean? And there's no balance there. There's none of that perspective. I mean, sobriety and being clean and working in recovery, that's given me balance in this thing too. You know what I mean? Like I recognize this is so much fun and so cool and so unique. It's addictive sometimes. You know what I mean? It's literally, it can, if I'm not careful, I could, use it in the same manner, you know what I mean? And I never want to do that.
Right.
I like having the ability to do other things, you know what I mean? And I prioritize it,
Yeah, so it gave you like perspective, being a recovering, whatever. I don't know exactly. I think you told me, I think it was alcohol, if I remember right. It makes you, because people do have addictive personality.
Back then, buddy.
It gives you, it gave you the toolkit. It gave you the toolkit to be able to, like, with these experiences that you're having with your, with your friends and your family, to give you that perspective, to step back. It kind of helped you. It was like an awful thing that you had to go through, but at the same time, it gave you a tool in which you can like go about the rest of your life, dude. And I think that's commendable and incredible, dude. So, yeah, dude. Anything else you want to talk about before I get you up out of here?
Tom, if I was to write a book, God. No, man, you know what? I love when we get to sit down, because it's always just organically cool conversation, man. And I love the fact that I've got friends all over the planet like this that we can sit down and but it's we pick up where we left off a year ago. You know what I mean? It's always I get enjoyment out of this. It's cool. Thank you. Thanks for having me on, Tom. I appreciate you so much,
dude. The things are all on this side of it. Everything, I feel the exact same way. I have friends in Spain, India, Pakistan. This is for real, all over the world. Because of my time all over the world, and then meeting a guy like you with your robotic hands and seeing Bigfoot out in the woods and stuff. That's always fun. and it's dude. It's like you never know what you're gonna run into when you open yourself up and just accept. Like people are having genuine experiences that are hard to to quantify. But at the same time, we're still people, dude. And I like you said that you enjoy coming on my show, dude. I enjoy the mere fact that you decided to always come on and talk with me. Like I find it to be like incredible that you would even want to talk to me. You know what I mean? It's like it's that kind of thing. You know what I mean? It's like it's like you're being generous with your time with me, and I really appreciate that.
Yeah, you're a good dude, and you're authentic, Tom. That's what those are two important elements.
All right, man. So thank you so much for coming on,
it's
dude.
All good, brother. I love it.
Yeah, buddy. All right, guys.
Tommy,
right up after this.
Anytime, man.
Anytime, dude. I'm going to contact Kevin again and have him on a live because he seems he has a lot he wants to talk about. Just not through you. and
you better do more than an hour with him.
Okay, well, I'll bump it back a little bit and give him some time. Thanks so much, dude.
Kevin needs more time.
I can't remember. We had him on for an hour and a half. I can't remember. The lag is hard. So thanks again, buddy. Right up after this, guys, do me a favor, go over to Magical Journey Podcast. He's going to have on another good friend of mine, Austin Lawrence from the Dead Chronicles, and I'm going to be having him on as well. He just accepted. I'm going to be having Austin on too on the 9th. So that's in 2 to 3 weeks. And next week, I'm going to be having on Texas Front Porch. He had an incredible, what do they call those? Crawler. I haven't had anyone who's had a crawler situation happen. So that's going to be weird. And thank you all very much. Thank you so much once again, Chris. Yeah, so it's just wild stuff that's coming up already lately, and it's been keeping up with. I try to find myself a literal notebook with the calendar on it today to write everything down because I need physical now because the computer stuff is getting too much for me. So, Chris, thank you so much for coming on again, dude, and I appreciate it, man.
My pleasure, Tom. We'll talk soon, brother.
All right, buddy. All right, guys. Remember, we are the eye. We are aware. I love you all.
Good, have
a great weekend. You too, buddy. Later.